Hey guys, and welcome to a Total War Warhammer 2 showdown between Kislev and the Border Princes, who are going to be led by myself and Raptor respectively. Now I know what you're thinking, Kislev and Border Princes aren't factions that you can play in Total War Warhammer. Well, today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing some modded Warhammer, which means we get quite a few new tools and units to play with, and should be some good fun. But have no fear, it's not going to replace the normal Warhammer videos I do. I'm just going to be adding in some extra content whilst we're kind of waiting for the Wood Elf DLC and all that good stuff. So anyway, here we go. We have Ungol warriors in our front line. These lads are cheap and cheerful, also decent damage dealers as well. They are kind of naked and a little bit fanatical, but still going to be a nice cheap front line for us for sure. Over on this right-hand side, we do have Chekists Patrol, which is basically Outriders, as you can see. Coming with their handguns, going to definitely help out supply some more damage and a little bit more mobility to a rather kind of statuesque formation and build all around. In the secondary line, we do have a double Kreml guard over on this right-hand flank. Armor-piercing Great Axe infantry who look incredibly badass. I really do indeed love their flowing cloaks. And they're going to be rolling alongside the defenders of Alexandronov, if I can get that word out there, who are unbreakable greatswords as well. So really trying to overload this right-hand side with our more elite infantry. Whereas on the left-hand side, we do have the Stalingrad militia, as well as some Corsair with great weapons, which are kind of mid-tier troops, just to add a little bit more bulkiness to our rather weak front line. In the back here, we do have the mighty Grand Cannon, basically a Queen of Bears, but looking really badass indeed. I must admit, the modelling on these mods are pretty damn fantastic. For our leadership corps up in the skies, we do have an Ice Witch on an Ice Pegasus, who is going to be coming in with some pretty nifty abilities. We have Chill Blast, which is a wind attack, Bite and Wind, which is a vortex, and Hailstorm, which is basically a frozen comet of Cassandra. Been up on high ground on her mighty Pegasus as well, will keep her out of harm's way for the most part. And for our Lord, of course, we have the mighty Boris. It simply would not be Kislev without a giant polar bear charging into battle. And Boris is going to be on top here as well, bringing it the stand ground, Potion of Strength, as well as Foe Seeker and Mighty Roar, the same ability the Regiment of Renowned White Lions do indeed bring. Slowing down leadership and or lowering leadership and slowing down the enemy is pretty potent and deadly. Now for my opponent today and the Border Princes, up in the skies we have the Birdmen, which is one of the coolest looking units I've seen in a while. You can see these flying contraptions, and they do work in a similar way to the Raven Heralds. For the front line, we have a mixture of dwarf warriors as well as shield bearers guarding either flank. Shield bearers in particular seem very deadly, anti-large, and hold for an absolute age. And then in the centre portions, we do have some Regiment of Renowned pikemen, as well as handgunners and swashbucklers dotted along, and yeah, just more dwarf warriors and more shield bearers. Backing this all up, we do have the Cursed Company, as well as some more shield bearers. Now, the Cursed Company, a very, very sticky unit. You can see they are led indeed by an undead combatant there, as when they're winning in combat or when they're losing in combat, they are regenerating, and they just kind of continue to stay and fight for as long as possible. The coolest unit, without a doubt, though, on the battlefield is Opho's Unlucky Organ here, which hopefully I'm saying these names right. Obviously, there's a lot of new names to learn and all that kind of stuff. But basically, it's a flaming and magical organ gun, which have Slayers as crew. So if you do try to shut them down with cavalry, these guys can simply hop off, whip out their axes, and drag you into the depths of hell. Leading this hellish formation and force in general, we do have Gash Nag the Black Prince. Very cool sounding fellow. And he's coming in with Illusionary Shadows, which is that 20% damage resistance, which is very nice. Stand Ground, Slippery, Pendulum, Melkov's Mystifying Miasma, as well as a Staff, which gives damage resistance, and Strong Vigor, and also Wrath as well, for a bit more armor piercing and splash damage. So a very tanky lord all round. Without further ado, let's get this battle underway. So as you can see, the Birdmen obviously floating over to try and deal with the Grand Cannon, which is unleashing some shots, doing really good damage so far to these Regiment of Renowned Pikemen, trying to get them off the field as quickly as possible, but they are unbreakable there. We get a lovely shot into the Swashbucklers in the back as well, and as you're going to see, we are going to be switching our targets to try and keep my opponent guessing, so he simply cannot dodge all the very lumbersome and slow attacks here of the Grand Cannon. The Chekists patrol here, doing some pretty decent damage to the Birdmen all round, slowly trying to whittle them down. They are pretty hard to hit. Looks like they have some abilities as well, up and under, which does give minus 50 range to anything they are on top of, I assume, or anything they hit perhaps. And also have a Stalk and Unspottable there. For the Grand Cannon, up to 23 kills already, doing some pretty decent work in whittling it down the opponents, and the Birdmen will slowly be falling from the hills. But as you can see, the Orn Gun is now firing in and trying to once again focus down the Great Cannon, which is the best option here. It's once again as well doing some pretty decent damage to the pikemen, but nothing too crazy so far, as the patrol do manage to force off the Birdmen here, which is really good stuff for us, which hopefully will allow the Grand Cannon to continue firing. It has a relatively nice position as well, dotted behind this hill, but still taking the odd shot here and there. We did manage to drop one of the Comets of Cassandora onto the unlucky organ, doing some massive damage, but unfortunately it didn't kill any of the artillery pieces themselves. The patrol getting a little danger closer, allowing the swashbucklers and the handgunners to do some damage to them as in return. We are going to be popping in with that lovely chill attack, doing some okay damage to the handgunners, followed up by a big old boom as well from the Great Cannon. So a very slow start to the battle so far, real heavy skirmish phase, but I think overall we've got a pretty good trade so far. Managing to do massive damage to the Birdmen as well as the handgunners, and doing big blitz damage with our Great Cannon. But oh no, this is pretty scary stuff. A massive pendulum does come down the line, tearing up double Ungor warriors as well as the patrol. But luckily these guys are relatively cheap, but still we kind of need all the troops we can get if we're going to overwhelm this position, which is the main battle plan. In comes another giant rock, I assume. There it is, darting over to the side, whacking into the Cursed Company, doing some pretty outrageous damage straight out of the gate. Orn Gun desperately trying to get rid of our Great Cannon, and it does indeed. It disappears into the void as the magical and flaming cannonballs just incinerated there into dust. So we are going to be forced forward here, so the mighty forces of Kislev, far away from their chilly homelands, are going to be pushing forward here in the harsh terrain of the desert. The swashbucklers and handgunners have been dealt with relatively effectively. They still have some models left. And the Ungor warriors, of course, coming with 15 armor, as they are pretty much naked. They have a bronze shield, but they're taking quite a bit of punishment on the way in. Aren't going to be too much use when they do get there, as they don't have great AP stats. Of course, we do have dwarf warriors, as well as a wall of pikes and spears awaiting us on the approach. But we've managed to shut some of them down as well. The advance is happening now, guys, as they're coming into the midpoint of the battle. And the Ungor warriors are about to take a charge from the shield bearers as well. Over on this right hand side, you can see Kreml's guard are going to be trying to get decent engagements up against shield bearers, and Boris as well is bounding forward on his mighty polar bear, going to be trying to seek out some deadly combatants that he happily will feast upon. He's pretty decent stats all round, 125 armor and 400 weapon strength. Does mean he packs a pretty hefty puncher, as the front lines are now fully engaged. Kremlin Guard should make short work here of the pikemen before pushing back onto the handgunners and hopefully the organ gun, which is up to 26 kills, not doing bad at all. As a wall of dwarves does halt our path, so we're going to be wrapping around the side with the patrol, and they're going to be firing into the rear of these shield bearers and dwarves, trying to get some decent damage and hopefully crumple this left hand flank. In the centre pocket, Kreml Guard as well as the defenders have managed to push through. However, the defenders have taken horrific damage from this organ gun, which is fired down the flanks here, decimating these poor brave Kislev folk. They are getting here and doing some decent damage to the Cursed Company, and also trying to focus down Gashnag where possible. Boris is jumping around at the back lines as well, hunting down swashbucklers, who of course can whip out their knives and try to go into glorious toe-to-toe combat. Melkov missed the fine mouse, but is popped on him, but a mighty roar does go down in order to allow him to escape this big old death blob. Don't want to get involved in all of this, especially when all of that damage resistance is down and active. Over here we can see the Kreml Guard going toe-to-toe with shield bearers, and you'd think AP axe-wielding troops would do good up against a shield spear unit, but these guys, I'm telling you, hold for an absolute age. Very tough units. And the Kreml Guard very slowly trying to drag them down. However, should still be able to break through and win that engagement in the end. Grand Cannon crew are throwing themselves forward. Cutlasses drawn, going to be diving in here on top of the Slayers, just trying to drag them down and help out the Kreml Guard where possible. We did do some rear attacks with our cavalry into the back to try and break this formation. It looked like it had worked. However, again, a lovely pendulum coming down by Raptor, taking out my great weapon units and doing massive damage as well to the Stahlgrad militia. Has also turned this into kind of a no victory zone for either of our forces. We do have some of the patrol as well trying to jump on top of the swashbucklers, but it looks like they are going to break just as they do indeed reach. However, the second unit is now firing into the rear of these slayers, going to be getting some pretty good value as they do fire into their own troops here. Looks like they do a bit of friendly fire damage, but also doing some damage onto the Kreml Guard as well. Looks like the mighty Boris has dived into the heart of enemy territory, trying to assassinate their lord where possible. And this was one of the first games we've played. I've literally done kind of 6 or 7 games overall on the entire mod, so neither of us really knew what was more powerful, which lords would win in combat. So it is kind of just a bit of a fluster cluck all round. Ice Witch does dart in onto the swashbucklers, trying to put them out of action. Looks like the patrol as well is going to be darting in and doing some decent burst damage straight out the gate. Sending these guys off their feet as well is always pretty useful. Boris does decide to flee, which is a little unfortunate because it is going to be wasting the potion of strength for the most part, and he's going to jump onto shield bearers, who are pretty good at killing him, but at the same time he's a gigantic polar bear riding maniac. He will also do pretty decent damage back as well, especially supported with the Kreml Guard. Very close. It looks like Bounce Power is slightly going against us here, but all hope is not lost yet as we're so close to breaking these swashbucklers. And it looks like the patrol is now going to hop over onto the second unit, trying to break off units where possible. And we do have some rallying troops as well in the distance here, desperately trying to come back to the fray. Defenders are simply down to 7 troops, up to 59 kills, not bad, considering they've been the focus of a lot of organ gun fire. So I'm going to be dropping at one of those icy Comets of Cassandora straight down, decimating the dwarves, but also finishing off my own troops to the last man here. However, these dwarves are most likely going to shatter off the field, simply having 240 health. Shield bearers have been terrified and slowly being dragged down here by the elite Kreml Guard, although Ungol warriors are trying to get in their teeth wet as well. Gashnag is chasing after the mighty Boris here, who's just walking away, using his added mobility to pop over onto different engagements, try to help finish off this last Slayer over here and these swashbucklers, which the Ice Witch is currently fighting. But looks like he is indeed going to turn and engage for a final confrontation as these two mighty warriors of legend do throw down. And man, this polar bear has awesome animations. It's based off the White Lion, I believe, which actually suits it quite a lot. Foe Seeker is popped, as well as the mighty Roar, and in comes the Ice Witch. But as we said before, the ridiculously high damage resistance makes Gashnag really tough to assassinate. But we are winning the engagement. It looks like he's getting very low. Of course, he is undead, so he will simply start to crumble if his morale does drop too low. Looks like he may be able to push back the Ice Witch as well. Stand your ground has been popped, but the Ice Witch flees for her life here. It looks like the Kreml Guard have been beaten back by the shield bearers as well, and we have a ton of rallying troops who do see their lord bravely fighting on, and they desperately are trying to get back to the main engagement. As Boris is going toe-to-toe still, Slippery has been popped as well to increase the melee defense here of the Black Prince, who's coming with some cleaving attacks of his own. And the mighty polar bear is now surrounded by pesky dwarflings and the sharp spears of the shield bearers. But he's not going down without a fight, clawing many a dwarf and dowie to their ruin. And it looks like the dwarfs were starting to run for the hills there, but unfortunately the mighty man, the myth, the legend himself, Boris, is dragged down there. So very well played to my opponent Raptor, going underneath the name Totally Not OP Stuff, which basically sums up the mods in general. Of course, it's not very balanced and so forth, but I thought it might be a fun little video to show you guys. And yeah, if you did enjoy, please do give the video a big old thumbs up and comment and stuff saying you want more of this content, as I may drop 1 or 2 more videos from this mod over the next coming days if people are interested. If not, we can simply go back to the standard stuff. And feel free to subscribe as well for all Total War Warhammer 2 content. Anyway, very well played, as I said earlier. Really fun builds from both of us. And that Great Cannon did some horrendous damage early on, though. Very well played here to Raptor to kind of pull this back. I think the early skirmish phase did kind of favour me slightly. How that Great Cannon is very expensive, so dragging it down like he did with the Organ Gun and keeping his own artillery firing throughout the generally most of the battle, kind of 3/4, was some really good value all round. And also that pesky Gashnag with his pendulums really swung some of those engagements in the front line. So awesome stuff to see. Definitely favourite unit from this though is the unlucky Organ Gun. As for my own forces, they did pretty decent. It was a relatively standard build, kind of heavy great weapon wielding units in the second line, cheap units in the front line, and just saturating on top, trying to bust through. But those shield bearers did not want to budge at all. MVP for us has to be Boris, simply because he is a man riding on top of a polar bear. So anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.